Right, okay, so it's quick bite time again, and this time we're taking a look at shotting patterns, something that's very, very simple, but quite often people tend to complicate it more than is needed. Now, there is specialist situations that occasionally you might need to do something a bit crazy, but for me, pretty much 3 shotting patterns does everything, and that all depends on what you're trying to catch, how you're feeding it, and how you want to present it. So I'm going to try and break that down in a nice short video and make it understandable for you. So the first one we're going to start off with is a spread out bulk. This I'll probably use for 80% of my fishing probably, because it's the most universal. Now I'd use this in any situation where I was fishing in open water and I want to get my bait down to the bottom fairly quick, but I also want to create a little curve in my rig. So to do that, what I do is I basically space out my shot evenly in the bottom third of my rig. That's the important thing. So if you're fishing 6 foot deep, those shot need to probably be spaced between roughly 2 foot. And if you work on that, that's going to be roughly where they need to space out. So that's how big the gap will need to be. I'm only fishing about 3 foot here today, so they're in the bottom foot of my rig. And they're just spaced out number 9s. Whatever size float you're using depends how many shot you're going to need. But that's so universal, it's really stable, and it just gets it down to the bottom and presents it nicely. I did used to use the bulk and 2 droppers. It's very popular. There's nothing wrong with it. If that's your preferred shotting pattern, then go with it. But play around with this one because it really does show up the bites very, very well. So that is for fishing on the bottom when you want your bait nice and stable and keep it in one place. So that's that one. Next, we're going to move on to fishing through the water. So this would be if I was fishing maggots or something like that and I was trying to catch fish on the drop but all the way to the bottom still, then that's when this shotting pattern would come out. Now this shotting pattern is basically spaced throughout the entire length of my rig. So however deep you're fishing, equally spaced those shot out, and what that's going to do is create a real steady fall, so your bait is falling as natural as it can at the same bait as your free offerings. And what you'll find is when you lay this float in the water, it's quite important to use a carbon stem float with this shotting pattern. Your float will sit and it will be tight to all of those shot until it gets to the bottom, and then it will sit up and cock like normal. So you're fishing all the way down, and that's why I use a strung out shotting pattern if I'm trying to fish through the water. It is worth a quick mention, for this I do use cube weights or stots. That's the only rig that I use cube weights on. The rest of them are all standard round shot. So if you're fishing through the water, cubes, purely because what I'll do here, as you can see it here, you can slide them on your line so much easier and they don't damage it. Tend to find with actual shot, they do damage your rigs if you try and move them. And then lastly, the last shotting pattern I use, I'm going to move on to. This one pretty much is for when I'm fishing down the edge or I want to be absolutely ultra positive, and that is just a bulk right on top of your hook link. All of the shot that your float takes, get it right down your hook link, get the bait straight down to the bottom and hold it there dead still. Like I said, that would come into situations where a lot of fish moving down the edge. You don't need to be neat, you don't need to make a nice presentation, you want to make it stable and you want to try and avoid foul hookers. So that's where the real heavy bulk, all in one place, get it down there and hold it still. And that's pretty much it. That's all I use. Those 3 will generally cover 99% of my fishing situations. So don't complicate it. Use one of those 3 and hopefully you should be presenting neatly and catching a few fish.